Liam, Mia's older brother, has always been the life and soul of the company. He had a natural magnetism and was able to easily find a common language with people. There was always a lot of life around him wherever he was. He gathered friends, classmates, and casual acquaintances around him. Liam was the kind of person who could make any evening bright and unforgettable. He liked being the center of attention, joking and entertaining others. And the house where he and his sister lived was always full of guests. Every summer he arranged something special. This time, inspired by the warm weather and the joy of finishing the school year, Liam decided to organize a party in the backyard. He wanted to celebrate the start of the long-awaited holidays in a noisy and fun way so that all his friends could relax and enjoy a carefree summer. The whole house was in anticipation. Liam was actively organizing, calling friends and ordering everything necessary for the holiday. Mia, on the other hand, did not share her brother's enthusiasm. She was the exact opposite of him, quiet, calm, and preferred to spend time reading or drawing. For her, the perfect evening is a cozy blanket, a cup of hot tea, and an interesting book. She had always considered noisy parties a waste of time and could not understand what was so exciting about spending an evening surrounded by a noisy crowd. When Liam announced his plans, Mia was sitting in the kitchen, leisurely sipping orange juice and flipping through one of her favorite books. The summer sunlight fell softly on the pages, and there was a calm atmosphere in the room. Liam burst into the kitchen like a hurricane, full of energy and enthusiasm. Music was playing in his headphones, and he was humming loudly, not caring what might disturb anyone. Mia didn't immediately notice his presence. She was too immersed in her book, enjoying the peace and quiet. But Liam, of course, couldn't miss the chance to share his grandiose plans.
Hey Mia, you won't believe it, but today we're going to have the most epic party,
he exclaimed, pulling the headphones out of his ears and sitting down opposite his sister. Mia looked up from her book, frowning slightly. She always appreciated her quiet moments, and this unexpected burst of activity did not please her at all. She didn't want to waste the evening on the noise, the crowd, and the mess that would inevitably arise after the party.
Seriously, you know I don't like all this noise and clutter. Why don't you have your party somewhere else?
She replied dryly, hoping that Liam would come to his senses and choose another place for his event. Liam, however, was not one to give up easily. He sat down opposite her, smiling broadly, as if her words didn't matter at all.
Oh, come on. It's going to be fun. Plus, I invited Jason and Marcus. You love Jason, he's always so sweet to you,
he said, winking, as if he knew this might change his sister's mind. Mia rolled her eyes, but there was a faint smile on her face. Liam was right, she really liked Jason. He was always polite and attentive, and his presence in Liam's company was a nice bonus for her. But despite this, she did not want to see a crowd of people in her house who would smash everything around.
Yes, Jason is nice, but that doesn't mean that I want to see a bunch of his friends here, and yours too.
Mia tried to object, but she understood that it would not be easy to convince her brother. Liam knew his sister and understood that she was not easy to persuade, but he did not give up. He leaned forward, pretending to be serious, and said softly,
Mia, come on. It's just one party. We will keep order. I promise that no one will make a mess, and you won't even notice how it goes.
She sighed heavily. Liam has always been like this when he wanted something. He did everything to make it happen. Mia knew it was useless to argue with him, but she still couldn't resist one last attempt to protect her personal space.
Okay, but if someone blows up my room, I'll throw you and all your friends out on the street myself. Okay,
she said, giving up under his onslaught. Liam smiled even wider and nodded, as if he had received a long-awaited agreement.
Agreed. Don't worry, everything will be fine. And yes, thank you, you are the best sister,
he exclaimed joyfully, jumping up from his chair and heading for the door. Left alone in the kitchen, Mia picked up the book again, but her thoughts were already far from the plot. She was thinking about the evening ahead, trying to imagine how it would all go. She didn't want to admit it, but the idea of seeing Jason made her a little nervous. He was always so attentive, always found time to talk to her when he was at their house. But a party is something else entirely. The noise, the crowd, the music at full volume, all this is not for her. She did not like big companies and preferred silence and comfort. Meanwhile, Liam immersed himself in preparing for the party. He had already started setting up tables in the backyard, thinking about where the food and drinks would be located. A large canopy was erected on the site, under which a small bar and several tables for snacks were placed. Liam ordered a variety of dishes so that each guest could find something to taste, from light snacks and salads to a barbecue that he was going to cook himself. In addition, he found old garlands and decorated the trees around with them, creating a cozy atmosphere. Mia, though reluctantly, decided to help him. She understood that the sooner they finished their preparations, the sooner she would be able to return to her studies. She set out the cutlery and glasses, hung up the decorations, and made sure everything was in its place. Liam was running around her, giving instructions and encouraging her, like the general organizer of an important event. At one point, she even began to find pleasure in these preparations, watching her brother enthusiastically do everything to make the party a success.
Do you really think that everyone will come? Won't it be too noisy for the neighbors?
She asked at one point as they were setting up the last tables. Liam was confident of his success.
Of course, everyone will come. And don't worry about the neighbors. We'll finish before midnight, and everything will be fine,
he replied with confidence. Her irritation was slowly dissipating. She began to realize that this wasn't just a party for Liam. It was an opportunity to bring friends together, have fun and feel alive after a busy school year. He sincerely wanted everyone around him to be happy, and Mia, despite her initial reluctance, began to sympathize with him a little. She knew how much this event meant to him, and decided that she could put up with it a little bit for his sake. As the evening drew to a close and the preparations were completed, Mia felt strangely calm. Maybe it won't be so bad? She might even be able to spend time with Jason if she could find a quiet corner away from the noise and crowds. With these thoughts in mind, she went to prepare for the party, hoping that everything would go smoothly. She went up to her room, where her favorite window seat was waiting for her. Mia sat down on the windowsill, hugged the steak. She raised her hands and looked at the evening sky, which was beginning to turn soft pink and orange tones. Her mind was full of thoughts about the evening ahead, about how Jason would appear on the doorstep, about what their conversation would be like. She couldn't help but smile at the thought of him, her heart starting to beat a little faster. She decided that it was worth choosing something comfortable, but still beautiful for the evening. Mia opened the closet and began sorting through the clothes, trying to find something suitable for such an occasion. She opted for a simple but elegant light blue dress that accentuated her dark eyes and soft waves of hair. This dress had always given her confidence, and today she needed that feeling more than ever. When she was done choosing her outfit, she looked at herself in the mirror and smiled slightly. Well, maybe it won't be so terrible, she thought, arranging her hair. She wanted this evening to be calm and uneventful, but something inside her told her that it could be the beginning of something new. While Mia was getting ready, Liam was checking the last details. He ran between the kitchen and the backyard, checking drinks, music, and lighting. He wanted everything to go perfectly, and for every guest to leave with a smile. At some point he stopped, looked at the sky, already covered with dark clouds, and smiled. He knew that this evening would be special, and he was full of anticipation. When the time came, the house began to fill up with guests. Mia stood on the porch and watched them enter the backyard one by one, greeting Liam and discussing how well everything was organized. Her heart started beating faster again when she saw the familiar figure of Jason, who was smiling and greeting her brother. At that moment, she realized that this evening was really going to be special, and she was ready to give him a chance. The party started, and the backyard was filled with laughter and music. But for Mia, all this faded into the background. The main thing she felt was a slight excitement and anticipation of something new that could happen that evening. Her gaze met Jason's, and at that moment she realized that this evening would change a lot in her life. As the evening drew to a close, Mia and Liam's house was filled with the sounds and smells of a party. The backyard was decorated with LED lights that twinkled merrily at dusk, creating a festive atmosphere. The guests began to gather, and the music coming from the speakers smoothly lifted the mood. Mia, despite her initial reluctance to participate in this, decided that if she had already agreed to the party, she should try to enjoy it. She put on her favorite light dress and went downstairs, where the usual bustle reigned. The guests were having fun, laughing and dancing, and Liam, as always, was the center of attention. A few minutes later, Jason and Marcus, Liam's best friends, appeared on the doorstep. Mia immediately noticed their appearance. They contrasted with each other like day and night. Jason is tall, with soft features and calm brown eyes that always radiated kindness. His voice was deep but quiet, as if he never wanted to draw too much attention to himself. Marcus, on the other hand, was more noticeable, noisy, with loud laughter and infectious energy that could not be ignored. He had that charisma that attracted people like a magnet.
Hey Liam, what a party. You've outdone yourself, bro.
Marcus shouted, slapping Liam on the back so that he almost lost his balance.
Thanks, dude. I hope you brought your best mood.
Liam laughed back, slapping Marcus on the shoulder. Jason stood a little apart, looking around as if trying to figure out how he fit into this chaos. Mia noticed that he stole a glance in her direction and smiled slightly when he caught her gaze. It wasn't just a polite smile, but something warmer and more sincere. She felt her heart skip a beat. She decided to come over and greet them. As she got closer, she caught Jason's eye once more.
Hi, Jason, Marcus. I'm glad to see you. I hope you're enjoying the party,
she said, trying to look casual.
Hi Mia, yes, it's very cool here. Liam did his best as always.
Jason replied, looking straight into her eyes, as if he wanted to say something else, but did not dare.
Hey Mia, how are you? Your party is almost as cool as mine.
Marcus added jokingly, drawing attention to himself again. Mia smiled, but all her attention was focused on Jason. There was something attractive about his calmness. She always liked that he didn't try to seem like someone he wasn't, and didn't try to attract attention to himself with loud antics like Marcus. His quiet confidence and attention to detail made her feel comfortable. Suddenly, Liam shouted at Marcus to help him with the drinks, and the two of them went to the table, leaving Mia and Jason alone. There was a brief pause between them, but it wasn't awkward. Jason looked at Mia and smiled.
You don't look like a person who likes parties like this. Did Liam talk you into staying?
He asked softly, his voice filled with genuine interest. Mia smiled, slightly embarrassed.
Yes, you can say that. I'm more into books and quiet evenings. But sometimes it's worth getting out of your comfort zone, right?
Jason nodded in agreement.
Absolutely. But there's something special about it, isn't there? Watching people rejoice, even if it's not really your style. I think sometimes we all need moments like this to feel alive.
Mia felt his words echo in her heart. She was surprised at how deep and honest his thoughts were, and she suddenly felt much closer to him.
You're right. I guess I'm just not used to parties like this. Liam is the exact opposite of me in this regard. But it's great that he can bring everyone together.
They continued to talk, and Mia realized that she and Jason were at ease and comfortable. He talked about his hobbies, music, and the books he loved to read. She was surprised to find that they had a lot in common. His interest in literature and cinema coincided with hers, and they quickly found common topics of conversation.
Have you read Toni Morrison's new book? She's amazing. I was just amazed how she was able to convey all these emotions.
Yes, this is one of my favorite books. Especially the scene where the heroine realizes that she has to leave the past behind in order to move forward. It was so powerful.
Jason smiled, his eyes lit up.
I always knew you had great taste, Mia.
She felt a blush flood her cheeks, but she smiled back. Soon Marcus and Liam returned with trays of drinks, and together they went to the backyard, where the party was going on. The music got louder, the guests started dancing, and even Liam got carried away with it. But Mia and Jason stayed on the edge of the crowd, preferring to continue their quiet conversation as if the world around them didn't matter.
Hey Jason, why are you so quiet? Let's go cheer up this party.
Marcus exclaimed, pushing Jason towards the dancers. Jason chuckled, but shook his head.
No, you go and I'll stay here. I'm fine as it is.
Marcus grinned and shrugged.
Well, whatever you want. But you're missing out on a lot, man.
When Marcus left, Mia and Jason were alone again. She felt that her sympathy for him was growing with each passing moment. She liked that he appreciated quiet conversations and the opportunity to just be himself in such a noisy environment.
Thank you for staying with me and not going dancing. It's nice.
There is no better place for me than here with you. I appreciate these moments. They are much more important than all the dancing and hype.
Mia felt her heart flutter. She couldn't believe he'd said that, and she didn't know what to say. She just smiled and looked at him, hoping that he understood how much his words meant to her. The party continued, but for Mia and Jason, time seemed to have stopped. In their little corner of the world, they found something special in each other, something they couldn't find anywhere else. The party was gaining momentum. The music was getting louder, the guests were dancing carelessly in the backyard, drinks were pouring down the river, and laughter filled the space. Liam, as always, was the center of attention, surrounded by his friends and girlfriends, including Marcus, who was undoubtedly enjoying the party, laughing loudly and pushing people to dance. Mia felt that this was not her place. She tried to play along with everyone's fun, but inside she was drawn somewhere away from this noise and crowd. Jason, who was also away from all the commotion, noticed her embarrassment.
Do you want to get out of here? It seems to be a bit out of your style.
Mia turned to him and nodded, relieved that he understood her without further ado.
Yes, that would be great. The kitchen is probably empty. Shall we go there?
They walked together to the kitchen, passing through the hum of the crowd. The kitchen was unexpectedly quiet. Only the faint sound of music filtered through the walls here, creating a calm atmosphere, unlike the heated backyard. Jason walked over to the table and sat down on one of the high chairs, motioning for Mia to sit next to him. She sat down and relaxed back, enjoying the moment of respite.
You know, I'm glad you offered to come here. Sometimes you just need to retire and take a break from all this noise.
Yes, I need it too. I've never been a big fan of loud parties. I prefer spending time in a quiet environment, reading a book or watching a good movie.
I totally agree with you. Sometimes it seems to me that you and I are on the same wavelength.
These words surprised Mia, but also pleased her. Her heart began to beat faster. She realized that Jason not only understood her, but also appreciated her quiet nature.
I think so too. It seems that we have already found common ground on many things more than once. And that's great.
Mia noticed that Jason was looking at her intently, as if trying to catch every word. For the first time, she realized that she didn't just feel comfortable around him, she really enjoyed his company. They sat looking at each other, and the silence was not awkward. It was filled with understanding and a quiet sympathy that gradually grew between them. Jason took a deep breath and seemed to have decided on something.
Mia, you know, I've always enjoyed spending time with you. You're so sincere and real. It's rare to meet people like that.
She was embarrassed, not used to such frank compliments, but she also felt that these words came from the heart.
Thank you, Jason. It means a lot to me. You're special too. It's not every day you meet someone who understands you like that.
They continued to talk about their hobbies, and soon the conversation smoothly turned to more personal topics. Jason told how as a child he was often left alone at home, as his parents worked a lot. Books and music became his best friends.
I think that's why I appreciate the real moments so much. When you were lonely as a child, you start to really appreciate good company.
I understand what you're talking about. I always felt a little out of place when I was in big companies. I have a few close friends, but I don't know how to enjoy noisy parties.
Jason nodded, and Mia saw the understanding in his eyes. It was their bond, quiet but deep. She realized that she had found a kindred spirit, and this feeling was new and surprisingly pleasant for her. Suddenly there was the sound of a door opening, and Liam came into the kitchen, slightly surprised to find them here.
Oh, there you are. I've been looking for you everywhere. Did you decide to hide from the party?
Jason and Mia exchanged glances and smiled.
Sometimes you need to take a break to take a little break.
Well, okay, I won't bother you. But you're missing out on all the fun.
Liam winked at his sister and left, closing the door behind him. They were alone again, and the silence returned.
You know, I rarely feel as comfortable with someone as I do with you right now.
I feel the same way. You're special, Mia.
She smiled, and her heart was filled with warmth. She realized that Jason was really interested in her, but he was careful not to push or rush things. This attracted her even more to him, his ability to be patient and attentive.
I think this party was a good idea, despite everything. I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad too. Maybe this is the beginning of something good.
Mia nodded. Their eyes met again, and at that moment a spark seemed to pass between them. They both realized that here, at this noisy party, something special had begun, something that they had both been waiting for without realizing it. The conversation continued, and time flew by unnoticed. The kitchen became for them a refuge from the outside world, a place where they could be themselves. Jason talked about his dream of becoming a musician and writing music that would inspire people.
Music is what makes me alive. I want people to feel the same way I do when I play.
Mia listened to him, admiring his passion and dedication to his work.
That's great, Jason. I'm sure you can do it. You are very talented.
He thanked her for her support, and she felt her heart melt at his warm smile. They exchanged stories from childhood, dreams and experiences, and each new story only brought them closer together. The night was fading, but they were in no hurry to return to the party. The kitchen became their little world, where there was no place for prying eyes and noisy dancing.
You know, I didn't expect to spend the evening like this, but honestly, I wouldn't want it to end.
Me too, Jason. Let's just enjoy this moment.
They smiled at each other, and it wasn't just a smile, it was the beginning of something more. The atmosphere between them was filled with a warmth and quiet understanding that both of them had been looking for so long. The party continued, but for Mia and Jason, it became the backdrop for something new, real, and incredibly important for both. As the evening went on, the atmosphere at the party became more and more relaxed. The music boomed louder, laughter and conversation mixed into one continuous stream of sounds. There was laughter everywhere. Someone had already started dancing. Someone was engaged in lively discussions and jokes. But for Mia and Jason, it was all a blur. They could only hear the muffled sounds of fun that came to them through the walls of the kitchen. After a long conversation in private, they decided to go out into the backyard. Although they were having a good time together, they knew that their absence might raise questions from Liam or other guests. But despite the noise around them, a special atmosphere continued to hover between them, as if an invisible thread had connected them into a single whole. They stayed close to each other, unconsciously seeking physical intimacy. And this rapprochement was not only physical, they felt an emotional connection that began to arise between them. Mia noticed how Jason became more attentive to her little things. He leaned closer to hear her better in the noise, and every time she spoke, he looked intently into her eyes, as if he wanted to catch every word, every shade of her voice. At one point, when they were laughing at a joke Mia had told, he leaned forward slightly and gently touched her shoulder. It was a light touch, almost weightless, but it gave her a sudden thrill. Without realizing it, she started looking for his touch. As they were walking through the garden, she accidentally brushed against his hand, and their fingers barely touched. She didn't pull her hand away, and he didn't take a step back either. On the contrary, they both held this touch, as if experiencing it, realizing that something was happening, but not yet knowing exactly what it was. Their fingers intertwined unobtrusively, and they walked on as if nothing had happened, but each of them felt that this was an important moment. Laughter and jokes became more frequent. Jason was always able to cheer her up, and Mia laughed more than usual. She could feel her heart beating faster every moment when he was around. His smile became something special for her, and his voice became the most pleasant music in the world. From time to time, they noticed that they began to avoid the others, trying to stay together. When Liam invited them to join the group, they evasively replied that they would take a little more walk in the garden or look at the stars. It was enough for them just to be together. In moments of silence, when they were sitting on a garden bench, they looked at the stars and shared their dreams and desires. In such conversations, they opened their souls to each other, and with each passing minute their connection became deeper. However, their idyll was soon disrupted. Marcus, restless and noisy, noticed their privacy and decided to intervene. He came up to them with a big smile and a mischievous twinkle in his eyes. Marcus was always brusque, and he didn't hesitate to join in their conversation. From the very first minutes, Marcus began flirting with Mia, not hiding his interest. He often touched her shoulder, laughed at her words, and tried to get her attention. Mia, although embarrassed by such pressure, tried to be friendly, but there was clearly an awkwardness in her behavior. She tried to get back to talking to Jason, but Marcus kept interrupting, complimenting her and getting her attention in every possible way. Jason, watching this, began to feel an unpleasant sensation in his chest. He understood that Marcus was his friend, but his behavior at that moment seemed completely inappropriate to him. Jason felt jealousy rising in him, and this feeling was new to him. He had never felt this way about Mia or anyone else before. He tried to remain calm, but it was difficult for him. Every time Marcus touched Mia or laughed out loud at her words, Jason felt his patience running out. He tried to interrupt the conversation, but Marcus didn't seem to notice him. This was especially frustrating considering that Jason had always been a man who respected the boundaries and feelings of others. Mia also felt the tension between Jason and Marcus. She didn't like this situation, but she didn't know how to stop Marcus without offending him. She noticed Jason clenching his fists and avoiding looking directly at Marcus. It was obvious that he was unhappy, but he tried not to show it. She understood that his feelings went beyond friendship, and it made her heart flutter. When Marcus once again made another compliment, which was clearly inappropriate, Jason couldn't stand it and abruptly stood up. "Marcus, I think it's time for us to get back to the others," he said, trying to keep his voice calm, but his eyes betrayed the tension. Marcus looked at him with a slight grin, as if he understood what was going on, but decided to obey anyway. They returned to the main group, and Mia felt relieved. However, her thoughts were still focused on Jason. She knew that his reaction to Marcus's behavior was not just due to jealousy, but something more. She could feel it in his gaze, in the way his eyes followed her every move. Even though they were surrounded by other people, their invisible bond did not weaken. On the contrary, it was even more tangible now, almost tangible. They exchanged glances through the crowd, and each such glance was filled with silent understanding and feelings that they had not yet dared to put into words. Mia understood that their friendship was turning into something more, and she liked it. Even when they were among the rest of the guests, Mia and Jason continued to look for moments to be closer to each other. When they laughed at jokes together, their shoulders involuntarily touched each other, and Mia felt a warmth spreading in her chest from these touches. She could see that Jason was not indifferent, either there was a new spark in his eyes when he looked at her. The party continued, but Mia and Jason were no longer paying attention to the others. They knew that something new had been born between them that could not be ignored. This was the beginning they were both waiting for, even if they didn't realize it. They understood that this evening had changed their relationship forever. The evening was rapidly turning into night, and the fun at the party reached its peak. The guests completely relaxed. Someone was dancing, someone was laughing on the sidelines, and someone even started a heated discussion about which film is the best in the last 10 years. But behind all this noise and carelessness, there was a tension that was building between Jason and Marcus, and this tension, unfortunately, became more noticeable to others. Jason felt a dull feeling of jealousy boiling up in him more and more. He was bothered by the way Marcus was flirting with Mia. He couldn't understand why his friend seemed to deliberately draw Mia's attention to himself. They always got along and respected each other. But today something has changed. Jason noticed that his calmness began to crack at the seams every time Marcus laughed out loud in response to Mia's words or pointedly touched her hand. It all looked carefree, but in Jason's eyes it was clear that he was on the edge. The tension between the two friends became so palpable that even the guests began to whisper, discussing their behavior. Liam, who always considered himself responsible for the good mood at his parties, also noticed the changes in the atmosphere and tried to figure out what was going on. Marcus seemed to be enjoying the situation. He enjoyed playing the part of a regular, poking fun at Jason and clearly enjoying Mia's attention. He didn't do anything reprehensible, but his behavior looked deliberately provocative. His every action and word was like a challenge to Jason, and Jason, who was usually restrained and balanced, began to lose control of his emotions. Mia, caught in the middle of this invisible conflict, felt extremely uncomfortable. She understood that something serious was brewing between Jason and Marcus, and although she didn't know all the details, she felt that it was all about her. With each new look, with each new gesture, the tension only intensified. She saw how Jason was struggling to contain his emotions, and she knew that something had to be done. At some point, the situation reached its climax. One of the guests, seeing Marcus and Jason starting to bicker over some small thing, tried to intervene, but it was already too late. The atmosphere was heated to the limit, and the tension that was hiding under the surface burst out. The party turned into a field for an unspoken battle, and all eyes were on the two friends, whose behavior did not fit into the framework of the usual. Mia felt she had to step in before the situation got out of hand. She saw Jason and Marcus exchanging sharp glances and barely talking. Their friendship, which seemed so strong, was suddenly threatened by some incomprehensible jealousy. She knew that this should not continue, and decided to take the initiative into her own hands. Gathering her courage, she walked over to Jason, who was standing in the corner of the yard, clearly trying to pull himself together. She could feel his inner struggle, his doubts and fears. Her heart sank at the thought that her presence could cause such a conflict between friends. Mia began the conversation cautiously, trying to figure out what was going on in his mind. Jason tried to hide his feelings at first, but she knew him well enough to understand that behind this mask of calmness there was a storm of emotions. He was angry at himself for letting jealousy get the better of him, and at the same time he was embarrassed in front of Mia for his behavior. When Mia started talking, her voice was soft and soothing. She tried to convey to him that she understood his feelings, and that she cared about what was going on between them. Jason listened to her, but his gaze was still intense, and his lips were pressed into a thin line. He didn't want to show his vulnerability, didn't want her to see how deeply he was hurt by Marcus' behavior. But her persistence and sincerity melted the ice in his heart. He slowly began to open up to her, confessing what he felt. He talked about his jealousy, about how suddenly he realized that he did not want anyone else, even his best friend, to flirt with Mia. Jason was afraid that his feelings would destroy their friendship, but he was even more afraid of losing the opportunity to be with her. Mia listened to him with a knowing smile, her heart fluttering at his words. She saw how difficult it was for him to admit his feelings, and appreciated his honesty. She understood that their conversation was important, not only for Jason, but also for herself. She was worried that her liking for Jason might affect their friendship and his relationship with Marcus. When Jason finished, he looked relieved, as if a big weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Mia gently took his hand, showing that she understood his fears and did not condemn him for them. She knew he needed time to understand his feelings, and she was willing to give him that time. Mia didn't want to ruin the friendship between Jason and Marcus because of her. She decided that she would talk to Marcus later, too, to figure out his motives and try to smooth things over. But right now she needed to convince Jason that his feelings wouldn't ruin their bond. She knew that their relationship was important to her, and she didn't want this conflict to cause a breakup. Jason stared at Mia intently, his eyes full of gratitude and understanding. He knew that her support was important to him, and that she would help him get through this difficult moment. He wasn't ready to fully admit to himself how he felt yet, but he knew that her presence next to him gave him strength. They stood for a long time holding hands and silently looking at each other. There was no need for words between them at this moment. Their silence said more than any confessions. They knew that this conversation had changed something important between them, and that they were ready to meet these changes together. The party went on, but it no longer mattered to them. More important were the feelings and thoughts they shared at that moment. They realized that their friendship was reaching a new level, and that there were many new and unexplored things ahead of them. But they were ready for this path, because they knew they were not alone. Mia decided that she would talk to Marcus later, when the emotions had calmed down and she would have a chance to calmly discuss everything that had happened. She didn't want her friends to stop talking because of her. She hoped she could explain everything to Marcus and help him understand that she never wanted to bring discord into their company. Jason also understood that he was going to have a serious conversation with his friend, but now he was grateful to Mia for being there. He felt that with her support, he would be able to sort out his feelings and decide what to do next. It was important to him that Mia did not turn away from him, but accepted him for who he was, with all his fears and doubts. When the evening came to an end and the guests began to leave, Jason and Mia decided to stay a little longer. They were sitting on a bench in the garden, looking at the stars and feeling something new arise between them. Not yet fully understood, but already so important for both of them. They knew that a difficult conversation with Marcus was ahead of them and that their relationship could change. But now they were just enjoying the moment, knowing that everything would be fine as long as they were together. The party was gradually coming to an end, and the night was slowly absorbing the last glimmer of light in the backyard. People were still dancing and laughing, but the general atmosphere became calmer, more relaxed. Many of the guests had already left, and the noise was slowly subsiding, leaving a place for warm, cozy silence. Only Liam's closest friends and those who were in no hurry to go home remained. Mia and Jason quietly moved to the side, away from the others. They found a secluded corner in the backyard, where a large tree grew, under the crowns of which there was an old wooden bench. This place became for them a kind of quiet haven where they could hide from the hustle and bustle and spend time alone. They were sitting side by side, and the night air was filled with the scent of flowers and freshness. There was a silence between them, but it wasn't awkward. It was a pause full of expectation and indecision. They both knew that this evening could be a turning point in their relationship. Jason was looking at Mia, and there was concern and slight uncertainty in his gaze. He didn't know how to start a conversation, although he knew in his heart that he had to tell her the truth. Mia, in turn, felt an inner excitement. Her heart was beating faster, and she felt goosebumps running through her body from the realization that she was now on the threshold of something important and unknown. She knew what she had to say, but she was stopped by fear, the fear of destroying the fine line they were on now, and the fear of being rejected. Sitting side by side, they exchanged glances, and at that moment a silent understanding arose between them. They both knew that the feelings they were experiencing were more than just friendship. It was a feeling that filled their hearts with warmth and joy. They understood that they were attracted to each other, that their friendship had already moved to another plane, and this required discussion. Finally, Mia took a deep breath, gathering all her strength to start a conversation. She turned to Jason, her gaze intent. She knew she couldn't hide her feelings anymore. It would be unfair to myself and to him. She knew that this conversation could change everything, but the silence had already become unbearable. Jason sensed that Mia was about to say something, and his heart began to beat faster. He didn't know what to expect, but he was ready to hear it. He saw something new in her eyes, something that made him feel more confident. He knew that her words would be sincere, no matter what they were. She began to speak slowly, choosing her words carefully so as not to upset the delicate balance. She talked about her feelings, how they developed during the evening, and how she realized that she was attracted to him much more than she thought. She admitted that she was afraid of losing him as a friend, but could no longer ignore her feelings. Jason listened to her attentively, without interrupting. Mia's every word seemed like music to him, and he felt his own heart fill with joy. He was glad that she had found the strength to be honest, and this inspired him to respond. When she finished speaking, he felt he had to respond in kind. He slowly began to talk about his feelings, about how they grew with each passing day, with each moment spent together. He admitted that he had noticed for a long time how warm his soul felt when she was around, how he began to look for her in the crowd, and how his heart stopped when she smiled. He was afraid to talk about it, so as not to destroy the harmony that existed between them. But now he realized that silence would be an even greater mistake. He admitted that he was also afraid of losing her friendship, but could no longer hide his feelings. He wanted her to know what she meant to him and was willing to give their feelings a chance, even if it meant risking destroying what they already had. His words were full of sincerity and warmth, and Mia felt her heart fill with joy. They both knew they had a choice in front of them. They could try to ignore their feelings and keep things the way they are, or take a chance and see where their new relationship leads. It was a difficult choice, but they understood that they had to make it together. They agreed to act carefully so as not to disturb the harmony in the circle of friends. They understood that their relationship would be under scrutiny and wanted to avoid unnecessary questions and suspicions. They decided that they would support each other and remain honest. From that moment on, they felt different. Now there was not only friendship between them, but also something more, something that they were ready to explore together. Their hearts were full of joy and hope, and they knew that this evening would be the beginning of a new stage in their lives. They stayed on the bench for a while longer, enjoying the silence and the feeling of intimacy. Now they knew that something new and unknown was waiting for them, but they were ready for it. Their hearts were full of hope and joy, and they knew that together they could overcome any difficulties. When they finally got up to go back to the others, their faces were glowing with happiness. They knew that everything would be different now, but that didn't scare them. On the contrary, it gave them strength and confidence. They knew that there were many new moments ahead of them that they would experience together, and this feeling was priceless. And so, they decided to give their feelings a chance. They knew it wasn't going to be easy, but they were ready for it. They understood that their path was just beginning, and there were many difficulties ahead, but they were ready to walk this path together, hand in hand, supporting each other and enjoying every moment. The end of the evening was the beginning of a new story, a story that was just beginning, but already promised to be incredible. Mia and Jason knew that now they had something special that they would cherish and develop, despite all the difficulties that might come their way. This evening was the beginning of a new stage for them, and they were determined to do everything possible to preserve this new feeling and develop it. A new chapter awaited them, and they were ready to start it with confidence and joy, knowing that they had found something special in each other that was worth all the effort and risk. That's how the evening ended, but a new story began, a story full of hope, joy and love that they would write together. And they knew that there were many more wonderful moments ahead of them that they would experience together, hand in hand, supporting each other and enjoying every moment of their new lives.